what we want to do with Fleetworks is basically create super carrier sales rep, like ultra reps, people who instead of doing, let's say a good rep today does 20 or 30 loads per day. We really envision a world where a great rep is doing 100 to 200 loads per day with our product.
Did you know that 91% of phishing attacks are conducted via email? Freight brokers are particularly at risk as email is the primary, really only option to collect carrier invoices, until now. EPay Manager, powered by OTR Solutions, is a back office automation and carrier payments platform that revolutionizes brokerage back offices with their proactive invoicing workflow, a centralized portal that gets you out of your email. The key to EPay's invoicing workflow is that the invoice is proactively triggered by the broker's TMS and is only created once the carrier reviews the details, which catches invoice disputes early on. This means that you can increase your invoice processing by up to 300 to 500% and reduce billing inaccuracies by 99%. Learn more about EPay by visiting epaymanager.com or text EPayFC to 80483 to see what they can do for your brokerage. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's episode, I did want to take a second to tell you a little bit about our new sponsor, Levity.ai. In freight, time is money and efficiency is key. That's where Levity comes in. Imagine automating your email operations to do more with less effort. Levity connects directly to your inboxes, extracting vital information from emails and attachments in real time. It seamlessly integrates with your TMS, empowering you to quote faster, build loads more efficiently, and book more freight in less time. Whether it's incoming emails from shippers or carriers, Levity's got you covered. It understands any language, any format, and even interprets non-standard formatting. Visit Levity.ai today to sign up and get started. Today's podcast is also brought to you by TextLocate. TextLocate makes it easy for brokers to communicate directly with drivers via SMS-based text messaging, no app to download, without having to use personal communication devices. Features like two-way text chat, one-time location updates, and image capture, think BOLs and PODs, all inside a simple dashboard, give brokers the quick updates they need to make better decisions about freight. Instead of wasting time calling drivers, brokers simply automate the process through TextLocate and save hours at very little cost investment. Go to textlocate.com to learn more. Welcome back to another episode of the Freight Caviar Podcast. Today we are joined by Paul Singer, the co-founder and CEO at Fleetworks, which is backed by Y Combinator, YC. Paul is also a Yale alum and a former product at Uber Freight. Paul, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you have a really interesting story, and you're here visiting some customers in Chicago. Chicago is kind of like the logistics capital of the U.S., and you also have a really cool background that I'd love to get into. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like your upbringing, where you're from, how did you get into Yale, how was it at Yale, and then how you got into freight?
For sure, yeah. I often joke with people, I think if you look at my background, I probably had a couple career paths. I was going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an investment banker. But yeah, here I am in trucking, and it makes a lot of sense. So I grew up in a suburb of New York City. Both my parents were immigrants. I came from the Soviet Union. And so for them, it was super important that I always felt like I was in a place of possibility. That's why they came to the US was, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, investment banker, but also explore what you want to do and go build that thing. Go build the life that you want to live. And it was amazing to see them, go from coming to the US with nothing to then, being able to live in a comfortable suburb. My mom is a lawyer, my dad is a quant trader. So they really made the most of the situation. Got into Yale, studied econ, but actually when I wasn't doing econ, I was spending most of my time doing language. So I was studying Chinese language, but also mechanical engineering. And that's because I really I knew I wanted to build something. I had no idea what it was, but I love the idea of making something, talking to a customer, and then having that product change that person's life. That was actually a really motivating challenge for me. And I knew after graduating Yale, I was like, I need to get to California somehow. That's where most tech gets built. Today, I think post-COVID, that has sort of changed, but the gravity, I think, is still in San Francisco.
Sure.
And so I took a job in management consulting. Like any good Yale grad, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no actual skills. So I was like, okay, let me go be a management consultant. Let me learn kind of how business works, how the world works. And then very quickly, I fell into the industrials practice. So this is a practice like basically anything that's like the real economy. Like my second ever consulting case was on industrial metal doors. The kind of things that most people actually found like really boring. They're like, I really don't want to spend 2 weeks or actually 2 months thinking about industrial metal doors. Like some roll up, some slide, like some stay static. You have like hangar doors, you have garage doors. But I think the biggest part of that market was the warehousing doors segment. And that's where like the most volume was. And that's actually where the most innovation was in metal doors. And so me growing up in suburban Connecticut, going to Yale, I don't think I'd ever seen a warehouse up until that point. And I was like, that's weird. Like, what are all these warehouses and why are there so many and why are there so many doors on these warehouses? And so a couple months after that project, Uber Freight had just started. They'd just been founded. I think it was 2016 or 2017. They were working on autonomous trucks, but they were also starting to broker freight in time.
Yeah.
And I remember the partners came to me. I was on a break in between projects and they were like, Paul, can you help us research Uber Freight? What's going to happen with this business? Is it going to follow the same trajectory as Uber, or is it going to be a different path, a different road? So we wrote this white paper back in 2017 on Uber Freight and kind of why we thought it was going to be a slower road to growth than Uber Rides, which obviously just I think was at the time the most explosive growth company that had ever existed.
So you were there from basically from the beginning, right? Because that auto acquisition like kind of is what.
So I joined in 2018. So I wrote this white paper at LEK in 2017. A year passed. I saw a strategy opening at Uber Freight, and I was like, oh, I actually know something about this company. I've kind of fallen in love with industrials. Like I love this world that like once you open your eyes and you start to look around, like you see like these companies everywhere. Like I think before I got into logistics, like I never noticed a truck on the road. As soon as I started at Uber, they're like, oh wow, like basically like every quarter mile I'm running into a truck.
Yeah. Especially when you come to Chicago. In Chicago, every single. It's the first thing you notice when you get off the plane is just how many trucks there are in 294 and 9.
I know. And I so that's kind of what really kept me and like drew me into Uber Freight was 2 weeks in, the ELD mandate was kind of just coming into effect. And I was like, oh wow, this is like upending this industry that had been doing things a certain way for the last 40 years. And they're like, okay, Paul, I know you've only been on the job for 3 weeks, but like figure out what our ELD strategy should be. Like, should we be partnering with them? Should we be buying one of these companies? Should we build our own? We ultimately went with partnering, but
good choice.
Yeah. But it was really, I think the thing that really kind of kept me in the industry was talking to owner operators, and seeing like a lot of these people, I mean, almost everyone just incredibly hardworking, incredibly honest, and a lot of them immigrants too. So I was really kind of inspired by the work that these guys were doing. And like that feeling that the world had gotten in 2020 of like, oh, truck drivers are bringing all the things that we really care about. Like that was obvious at Uber Freight, and everyone was super passionate about that mission. So
yeah, truck drivers became very important when everybody needed toilet paper.
Exactly. Yeah. And also factories in China probably too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I took that role and strategy, ended up becoming a product manager at Uber Freight. So I ran everything related to network quality. So we built the first product in the industry that dynamically scorecarded carriers in real time. I think a very challenging and fraught product, right? Because carriers inherently, I think when you tell them, hey, you're getting measured, there's a little bit of like a cringe, a little bit of a
defensive,
oh, well, you don't know what I'm doing. You don't know the challenges I'm going through. So we spent a lot of time researching, what it means to be fair and how do we measure carriers appropriately. And what we found with launching an A/B test is that when we gave carriers this dynamic scorecard, because we had designed it in such a carrier-friendly way and given them clear explanations like why their scores were a certain way, we actually saw that carriers who got our scorecard took more loads with Uber Freight than carriers who didn't.
Because they knew a clear path to success.
Exactly. And they felt like connected to Uber Freight. They felt like someone was like paying attention to them and and holding them accountable in a very fair way. And there was always a human as a backstop. If they felt like things were unfair, they could always reach out to a dedicated team that would support them on that.
Hey there, amazing listeners. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on our podcast, we need your support. It will only take a moment, but it would mean the world to us. Please make sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to share with one of your friends that would enjoy our content. Your engagement helps us reach more people and bring more awesome episodes to you. Thanks a million, and thanks for being part of the podcast community.
All of that to say that we've really taken that ethos here. So, we sell our AI carrier sales agent to freight brokers. Those are our customers. But really, our most common users are carriers. And so everything our product does and everything it will do has to be super carrier first. They have to love using that product, because if they don't, then our product is dead. And it's super important that even though we've built this product that works really well, there's always a human as a backstop, right? Because there's never going to be a world where you have AI just taking over everything. Like, humans are really good at relationship building, at solving complex challenges, and piecing together like really disparate pieces of ambiguous information. AI is going to get better, but what we want to do with Fleetworks is basically create super carrier sales rep, like ultra reps, people who, instead of doing, let's say a good rep today does 20 or 30 loads per day. We really envision a world where a great rep is doing 100 to 200 loads per day with our product.
That's really interesting, because most freight tech solutions that get sold to carriers are like, it's really hard to sell into carriers, because carriers have like the least margin out of everybody. And usually freight tech is like successful selling into brokers, right? But so what level of success have you guys seen with selling into carriers? How's like the adoption been? How have carriers been receiving it?
Yeah. So we sell our product to brokers.
Okay.
So our product is exclusively carrier sales agent. So we don't play both sides of the market. We really think brokers can take the most advantage of this kind of product, but it's super important. Yeah. It's really important. Like, I think when you think about one of the kind of ways that we think about our product is, and I'm actually really inspired by what like the Silver family did with Coyote. I think Coyote's secret sauce was two things: Bazooka, their TMS, but then also the training that led to their carrier reps maximally utilizing it. And so when you have a carrier rep, you want to train them to be as carrier friendly as possible, right? Like you want to make sure that they feel like the carriers feel like they can talk to this rep. If someone comes out super aggressive every single time, they're just going to burn bridges and destroy relationships. Same with our AI product. Our AI picks up the phone when carriers call in and sells them freight. Now that's what our product does today. We can kind of go into where it will go in the future. But it's super important that carriers have a great experience talking to our AI.
Paul, can you tell us a little bit about the story behind like leaving Uber Freight and starting Fleetworks, and how did the idea come up? How did you, raise money? How did
apply to YC?
Yeah. Man, it feels like so long ago. It's like I think it's like about 2 years ago now.
Okay.
So I knew I'd always wanted to start a company. And going to Uber was an amazing stepping stone for me. Like, I think the kinds of people I met there, just incredibly passionate, super smart people, and people who are super confident that we can make a change in the industry. I think we did. Like, I think that people might, talk down about digital brokers, but I think Uber has become more human-like. Like, they've invested more in human tooling. But you see every other really successful broker has invested a ton in technology to really catch up. I think the two sides have really come together on that. But kind of what I saw at Uber was the fully digital model works really well, but in limited circumstances. I think if you think about it from a geographic standpoint, it works really well on ultra dense short haul lanes, like intrastate Texas, intrastate California. The model starts to become a little bit more challenging when you have, I guess, like less dense lanes and longer hauls. But when you talk to a freight broker, those are the lanes where they actually make most of their money, and ultimately Uber can turn a lot of these Texas loads. But where you're making your thousands of dollars a load is going to be your, California to Maryland load, right? Where you've got like one carrier that who's going to pick up this load, and that shipper really trusts you to service that freight appropriately every time. And so what I saw was that humans were actually super powerful in this process. And I felt like Uber could have done more to invest in their humans. And I think they have, like, especially post Transplace acquisition. But our whole product suite is really a bet that humans are going to play a super important role in coordinating freight for the very long term. Certainly a world where autonomous trucks are everywhere, I think maybe that thesis changes, but we're pretty far from that.
Pretty far.
Yeah. And so I saw, hey, like, you have humans doing all these tasks. You have what I think a lot of people will point to, like track and trace, right? You have these GPS devices, but you still have people calling, and you have appointment scheduling, and you have email and phone call. We firmly believe that our product is best used for carrier sales. So there is a world where our product starts to expand into things like track and trace to the extent that it helps freight brokers handle more loads per day per head. But we're really focused on carrier sales. And so this is all to say that phone is just one of the channels that freight brokers use. When you actually go and sit on the floor, that's what I've been doing like this whole week, is I've been every single day at different floor. What are the common themes? How do people run their businesses differently? And everyone has their own secret sauce. But ultimately, I think the best reps meet carriers where they are. They do really good carrier development. They say, hey, how many trucks do you have? What lanes? What days? What equipment type? Is this a regular lane? Are you looking for any backhauls? Things like that. And then what's your preferred method of communication? So today we've decided phone because that's a huge, very inefficient part. And we can kind of talk about the stats on that. Hyper inefficient part of running a freight brokerage today, but very necessary.
Yeah.
Then you also have email, you have SMS, you have WhatsApp, you have Telegram, you have Discord, you have GChat, all of these channels that you're booking freight on. And the managers and directors and executives are like, I really don't like that my reps have to use these channels, but they have to because that's where the carriers want them to book.
Okay.
We think that AI can really centralize all of these communication channels into a single platform. And ultimately, when you do that, you start to collect some really interesting data around who these carriers are, at what price do they like to run their lanes, and you start to figure out, okay, like, how do you actually get in front of the right carrier at the right time at the right price? And that was really the vision with Uber Freight, is right carrier, right time, right price. The thing is, with an app, you have to force your carriers to come to you.
Right.
If you build an application into all of these more kind of disparate communication channels, suddenly you can actually bring your technology exactly to where the carrier is without them having to EDI or API it, right? You can connect to a 3-truck fleet using AI and GChat.
Right. So how does that look like? Just curious. So I know there's like one app where you could download on your phone and like on your Mac,
Yep.
where it takes like your WhatsApp messages, your LinkedIn messages, Instagram messages, and puts it all in one.
Yep.
I use it for like a week, and then I just decided I had way too many messages, and I don't reply to most of them anyway. But curious, like, is that something similar where like a carrier will download the Fleetworks app and then they could plug in their GChat, or can you throw how that?
Yeah, and so the brokers use our app. From a carrier perspective,
Because you did say like that carriers use this a lot, like
Yeah.
And then like Christian was wondering if it was.
yeah.
So I'm wondering, what does that look like from the carrier's perspective?
Mhm.
What do they do?
So would it help if I played a recording of our AI talking to a carrier?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
Let's do it.
Pause the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
cut.
Okay.
We'll cut back.
It's all good.
Yeah. Great commercial break time.
EPay Manager, powered by OTR Solutions, is a back office automation and carrier payments platform that revolutionizes brokerage back offices with their proactive invoicing workflow, a centralized portal that gets you out of your email. Learn more about ePay by visiting epaymanager.com or text ePayFC to 80483 to see what they can do for your brokerage.
So, yeah, and to clarify, the way that carriers use our product is, for them, in theory, nothing should change. Like, they still feel like they're talking to their broker on GChat.
Okay. So they're using GChat.
They're using GChat.
And their Gmail, whatever.
Same channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Carriers,
Nothing changes.
nothing
Carriers.
changes
Yes.
for your 3-truck fleet that's really trying to make do in this super tough market.
Sure.
Right. For the broker, everything gets centralized into one place.
Okay.
Now, like, I think the power of this product is AI can take a very significant portion of that work off the broker's plate, right?
Mhm.
Imagine, super simple example, carrier sends you a truck list over email, AI responds back, right? And then the carrier says, okay, I want loads 1, 3, and 5. What's your price? We respond back. And then let's say the carrier wants to negotiate back a little bit. That's probably where we might loop in a human being and say, hey, our AI is not authorized to do that kind of negotiation right now. You jump in.
Oh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like they know that they're speaking to AI or emailing AI.
It almost seems like they aren't though, right?
It depends. So our thesis is that we don't want to bamboozle the carrier. I think you ethically don't want to do that, but also the carriers can understand what the AI can and cannot do if they know about that. If they think it's a person, I think that's super disingenuous. I think you risk hurting your carrier relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So now from the broker's perspective, let's say I'm a broker and I call you up, Paul. I'm like, hey, I want Fleetworks. What does it look like? Like a broker sits down at their laptop or their computer screens, like take us through the whole process of getting set up and like how could it help a broker?
Yeah. So the process is really straightforward. I think it's important maybe to just back up and talk about what's stopping a rep to go from 20 loads per day to 100 loads per day, right? I think two things. So first of all, reps need to take breaks, and that's really important. Like they need to like hit the golf putting thing on the broker. They need to take their Zen breaks.
On the breaks,
Exactly.
all on the breaks.
Yeah. So and that's an obvious advantage of AI, right? There are no Zen breaks. So
not yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you have AGI, it's gonna be like, I'm taking my Zen break.
My Zen AI.
But so I think there's kind of two things. So one is carrier reps are spending way too much time on really easy to cover freight. And it's not their fault. It's because when you post a super hot load, let's say like a load coming out of New York to Chicago, like every carrier is trying to get out of New York and go back to Chicago. You're going to get 100 phone calls instantly and then like 200 emails being like, how can I get this load right now? And you're going to be block and tackling. You're going to say, hey man, that load is covered. We're trying to be at 600. The carrier says 700. So today we handle that really well. We basically take those really easy to cover loads and take those off the broker's plate.
Okay.
But then reps are spending a huge amount of time developing carriers to be able to handle their really tough to cover break. Like that's the other part of their day is like they'll spend their morning covering their easy freight, and in the afternoon there's like 3 super tough loads that they just cannot get off. That's where we're headed to. So our AI is already taking these calls, pre-negotiating, covering these loads, and the impact has been massive for our customers. So almost overnight, our customers see a 30% increase in loads per day per head.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, and that happens like within a couple weeks. We also see that on equivalent loads, our AI negotiates carriers down 15% from their initial bid, and that results in a 1.5% better profitability per load for a broker. So huge margin expansion for a broker.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
insane. Wild.
Trucking companies don't like that.
I think so, and I think people will sell AI to trucking companies, and I think there'll be like a new equilibrium in the space.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. How do you think it'll play out? Like, let's say over the course of 5-10 years, right? How do you think it'll play out? Right now, brokers are the ones that can essentially afford these products, right? But then somebody's going to come in and be like, okay, well, the carriers are getting maybe pushed down in the prices. Like, let's try to see if we can come. And as AI becomes cheaper, maybe it'll actually make more sense to become a product for a carrier. How do you see it playing out? Like, is AI just negotiating with itself? Like, are two AIs negotiating with each other?
I think that just becomes an API in that case. Like I think if you have just two AIs talking to each other, you might as well just connect.
Is English the ultimate API in this?
Is English the ultimate API? I actually think kind of the opposite. So we believe that the carrier should be able to interact with our AI in any native in their native language.
Sure.
So we actually really want a Spanish-speaking carrier or a Polish-speaking carrier to be able to call in and be comfortable talking to our AI
in their language.
In their native language. So that's something that we're working on. It's an unsolved problem right now, and we're really excited about that because I think that's just going to open up a huge part of the community. But I think the the beauty of this kind of market is I think it's very self-balancing. Like when you look at DAT, like DAT has reasonably accurate rates, right? I mean, some people maybe might disagree, but I think overall price prediction is decent, and the market's going to self-balance. Like it's like the price can't just fall infinitely, right? Because carriers have an operating cost and they need to like maintain that, and they need to pay their drivers. They need to take home some profit. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we'll see like a massive change in carrier profitability, but I think what we are seeing is that there's an opportunity for brokers to find margin on some loads, not all loads. Sometimes like you've got your relationship carrier and you have a good price on that lane and it's a very fair price, but sometimes there's an opportunity to make 1%.
Right, sure.
That's a big difference for a broker.
Yeah, definitely. Can you go back, Paul, now to like the original, like the original
tangents?
Yeah, no, I love it too.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, I'm just like, I don't know if you explained everything you wanted to, because you wanted to back up a little bit on the question I had.
And we're getting
Okay, so continue. I know.
Yeah.
You
so I think so on one hand you have these really easy to cover loads, right? Mm-hmm. The funny thing is we actually see brokers have when our AI gets deployed, we actually have measurable improvement in job satisfaction. Okay, with the brokers, right? Because when you think about like how grindy this industry is and how like a broker's got to be available from 6 a.m. to like 8 p.m. if there's an issue, right? Mm-hmm. We take a lot of that off their plate so they can focus on the really important, really thoughtful work. Now getting to that really important, thoughtful work, how do we empower them to do only that and do that just hyper effectively? We're starting to do carrier development on every single call that we handle. So how many, like, of course, FMCSAs and highway store, okay, how many trucks do you have? Mm-hmm. But we can actually get more accurate data from the carrier by asking them. We can ask what lanes you want to run and how you want to communicate. So we're coalescing all that data. Okay. And we're going to start to open the spigot to enable reps to tap into that data, to say, okay, you have this one super tough to cover lane. Let's say, Chicago to North Dakota, like no one's going to want to run that lane, especially as a head haul. Maybe the other way for sure. But how do you find that? How do you find that those, let's say 20 carriers who's going to take that load? Well, we're talking to tens of thousands of carriers every single day. Okay. So you better bet that there's 0.1% of those who are willing to run that lane for a certain price. So we're going to find that carrier and we're going to surface it to the rep. And that's how we enable our customers to service their freight and service their freight profitably. Okay.
Curious. So when you're taking those calls, like, are you sharing that data with like all your customers?
Yeah.
So like, they just say like Chicago, North Dakota, you have like, a few carriers, like you will share that with like all your customers.
I think that is going to be an opt-in.
Okay.
I think if you want access to that information, you're going to have to opt into sharing your information.
Okay.
I think,
but you better
the common theme.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's kind of there's like, you're pulling out a really interesting thread about what's my data and what's the network data. Mm-hmm. So we're giving our customers hyper real time and accurate data about what their bids are. So we're logging every single bid, right?
Okay.
You can imagine how we're actually expanding the pricing data that our customers get, probably by an order of magnitude, actually. Mm-hmm. I was talking with Ryder's head of data and pricing, and he's gearing up for RFP season. Super interesting time. We've started to help our customers rethink how they do RFPs. Okay. We say, hey, like, on your top 20 lanes, here is the whole distribution of bids that we're getting over time relative to lead time. Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, wow, this is actually really interesting. This is more data that I'm getting from DAT or any other source. And it probably is more accurate because this is actually what carriers are telling me. Yeah. And so you start to think about, okay, how can my specific pricing data be valuable to me? Mm-hmm. But then also you have the whole Fleetworks network. And, of course, we can't reveal, exact date time. We can't reveal carrier MC. But we can aggregate our customers' data and say, hey, you as like, let's say a pretty large broker, let's call it Capstone, one of our favorite customers. They're like amazing. They're probably maybe 0.2% of the whole freight brokerage market. And they're a decent sized broker. Yeah. Uber Freight's like 2% and they're huge.
Sure.
And so if you think that none of these brokers have enough data to be able to run their own pricing algorithms, Fleetworks at this point would already be considered easily a top 5 broker with all the data that we're collecting and all the loads that we're touching. Can we actually coalesce that for our customers and help them price better in real time, right? Because there's no lag in it.
Fascinating.
That's real cool.
Do like is a lot of this data coming through a phone call with an AI, or is it like via email?
Yeah.
All the channels, right?
So it will be all channels.
All channels.
We've gone with phone first, and the reason for that is freight brokers today, on average, miss half of calls coming in. So for every
They can only take one at a time.
Yeah, exactly. So for every 2 calls, you're missing 1. Now, the best customers I've seen are missing 25, 30%.
Sure.
The worst I've seen is 75% in this call, which is crazy. But it makes sense because when reps pick up the phone, there's a 95% chance that call does not result in a booking. And that's because, the MC might not be good, the appointment times might not work for the carrier, the price might not work for the carrier, or some details about the load, like, I don't have bars, or I don't have straps.
So that's 20 calls by the time they book the...
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty standard, like 20 calls to book one load.
Yeah, so you just clean it all up.
Exactly. So we really kind of filter that down for our customers.
That's amazing.
Yes. And then you think about, okay, all those calls you're missing, how much data could be captured on those calls?
Yeah.
Right? What carrier's calling in, what price, what lane, right? So those are kind of the 3 reasons that phone calls are likely better served with AI and a human combined than just a human. That's why we've gone phone first. We're moving to expand to these other channels. And in many ways, those channels are actually going to be easy, right? Because actually executing phone calls with AI is technically pretty hard. Like, you need to, in real time, transcribe, analyze with an LLM, spit back with a voice. With email, it's kind of just text.
It's already transcribed.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And ultimately, the value of, okay, well, me as a broker, okay, why wouldn't I just build this AI tool myself, right? Especially for email or for whatever. And I think the answer is a lot of brokers probably could do it, but the network effects, like I mentioned, of like, okay, you're a broker and you're 0.25% of the whole market. Well, Fleetworks is already multiple percent of the market. How much more could you benefit from the data that we're gathering while also executing these for you?
Okay. So cool.
That's really sweet. Yeah. I think the amount of LLM applications that exist like with real world value.
Yeah.
I've seen to be, there's a lot of like vaporware. There's a lot of vaporware. There's a lot of bullshit, honestly. And this is like one of the ones that I've seen that are like providing some real world value, which is really awesome to see.
So like, even like, let's say, for example, a carrier calls in and MC's bad. Does the AI like run that and like basically tell you like, just, we can't work with you? Like,
So we do our best to mirror exactly what our customers' standard operating procedures are.
Okay.
So, and we have multiple compliance partnerships at this point, and probably more to come in the near future. We will, if a customer wants to run that call, we'll run that call. We'll collect the data. A lot of our customers, obviously, given that fraud is surging in the space, they're just going to want to cut that call off, and we'll do that.
Okay.
So we always, and I think super important at the end of the day, like, carriers are people and mistakes happen, right? Maybe that MC is it's a false flag, and that carrier actually should be hauling with you.
Sure.
We always give them an out. So when we say, hey, like, if you have any questions, email this email, right? Like, if you think this is an error, like, let us help you, right?
Sure.
We don't want technology to just be like this infinite wall that you can't get over.
Okay.
It's really important to us.
Paul, I think you're going to show us.
Oh yeah.
Can you show us right now?
Yeah.
How it sounds. What it's like.
Yes. So I've got a couple recordings here.
Okay.
Let's run one, and hopefully the mic will pick it up.
The mic pick it up. Levity.ai. In freight, time is money and efficiency is key. That's where Levity comes in. Imagine automating your email operations to do more with less effort. Levity connects directly to your inboxes, extracting vital information from emails and attachments in real time. It seamlessly integrates with your TMS, empowering you to quote faster, build loads more efficiently, and book more freight in less time. Visit Levity.ai today to sign up and get started.
Thanks for calling, Ryder. Can I get your MC?
It's 930570.
Is this Mirabal Trucking?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. What's the reference number or lane?
The reference number is going to be 82187903.
One moment. It picks up in Highlands, Texas tomorrow on August 22nd between 9:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. It drops off in Buckeye, Arizona tomorrow on August 22nd between 9 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. You'll need a dry van, TL, for this load. It's 40342 pounds of miscellaneous. What else do you need to know?
What's the rate on it?
The rate for this load is $1,975. What rate are you looking for?
Is there any way you could do 21?
Thanks for the offer. We're looking to be around 1975. Can you meet me closer to that?
Can you do 2000?
Let me check. We're still looking to be around 1975. Can you come closer to that?
Okay, I'll take the load for 1975.
Just a moment. Okay, let me transfer you.
Okay, and then it gets transferred to a human. Cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that customer in particular, we transfer. Some customers are working with us with full end-to-end booking. So if everything checks out on the compliance side, we'll actually we'll toggle it to covered in the TMS, and the rate con gets sent.
Okay.
So it kind of makes that almost a digital booking.
Sure. It was kind of funny just hearing the AI like talking about like where rate do you need to be at, and it just kept being stuck at 1975.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, how does that look like behind the scenes, like negotiation wise?
Yep.
Can you talk us through that? And also, it just seems like it's right now it's on the phones, but you're also like integrated the TMS and like all the email stuff. Like, it's really complex when you think about it.
Yep.
But like, can you walk us through all that too, like complexity?
Sure. Yeah. So how negotiation works, it's a little bit custom on a per customer basis. And we have logic on our end to be more accommodating depending on lead time, right? So super important for us to be able to help customers whether a load is 2 days out or like 2 hours out.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have logic around that. You know, I was talking with some senior executives at Echo about this actually, and they were saying, okay, well, you know, we have really sophisticated pricing algorithms on our side. What they found was that 85% of the time when carriers call in, their pricing algorithm spits back to the carrier rep, do not budge on target rate, right? So in some ways, negotiation is maybe overdone in the industry, and actually the most optimal route is to stay at the target. Now, again, it's not always the case. The load might be 2 hours to pick up. You need that load covered, or you might be willing to lose money. So that's kind of how that works. Tying it back to how we think about our pricing index and all the pricing data that we're gathering, we're going to start to build the most real-time version of what prices look like in this industry at any given point, and for different lead times, right? And so we can actually start to feed that into our negotiation module itself, and our customers can put that negotiation on auto. So instead of that running off of our customer's logic, they can opt into our logic. Okay. Now, you're asking, okay, how does a product work? So there's a couple pieces, and we get the data from our customers' TMS. So all of our customers have a TMS. We connect to the TMS. Anytime anything changes about a load, we know instantaneously. So when a carrier calls in, we know the latest and greatest about, you know, appointment times, load notes, and equipment type, and, you know, and really anything you need to know about a load. We execute the phone call. So from a carrier perspective, they're calling a phone number, and, you know, they see that number posted on, you know, DAT or on our customer's website or anything. And we're going to execute the call. And then we're going to write that data back into our own portal. We can also write that back into our customer's TMS. So from a customer point of view, we're almost turning everything into an email in a way. Like, they're sitting in an inbox, and we're just hitting them with bids, saying like, 30 seconds ago, this bid came in. You know, 2 minutes ago, this bid came in. This call is getting transferred right now. It's a super hot bid. Book this carrier right now. Or we'll say, hey, we blocked these 300 calls for you today because you know, the MC was bad, or the phone numbers associated with a fraudulent carrier, right? So we're already doing kind of all that, but it's super important. I think from our end, we focus our customers on the most important calls. Like the calls on bad MCs, we show them, but that's not really important for like actually covering loads today, like right now. So we put those loads like front and center.
You're saying it's that important from the perspective that, like, right now, from the company's priority perspective, that's not important to you guys, or just in general that's not important?
It's super important in general, but it's not important about when you're thinking about how do I cover this load going from Atlanta to Chicago, right?
Got it. So like later on, like once you guys perfect this whole covering the load part, the initial core piece. It's like, okay, then let's kind of try to improve and optimize. Like maybe this MC is not the best to cover that.
Well, it's more that we, like, let's say a carrier is a fail or it's out of the carrier's network or it's marked as do not dispatch, right? So we're going to block that call. We're going to block and tackle that. But from a carrier sales operator perspective, they don't need to know that we blocked that call.
Yeah.
Sure, right? We're saving them time by taking that.
Exactly.
Call.
Yeah, okay.
It's like a shipper doesn't need to know like how difficult the load was to cover. They just added the truck go up.
Exactly. Yeah. But from a head of carrier sales perspective, that's really important. They want to know, hey, what is the distribution of my calls, right?
Okay.
How many fraudulent carriers are calling me, right? You start to see interesting things like some carriers asking, hey, like how many pallets are there? Like what's the dimensions? And like, is that carrier, like what is that carrier trying to do, right? And that's kind of up to the broker to decide on how they want to treat those.
Got it. So like, let's just say like a carrier is asking the AI, like how many pallets is it?
Yeah.
What happens then?
If we have that information, we'll tell them.
Okay.
One really interesting technical challenge that we've overcome is we've cut AI hallucination rate to 0.
What is
now? Yeah, to explain what that is. So AI loves to make things up. It's AI's favorite pastime is making things up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when you saw like when Google launched their AI, it was like, put glue on pizza and then eat it. And then Google took that down.
AI hallucination. Love that.
So hallucination is a big problem, right? And you need to we've come up with a bunch of really interesting tricks to prevent hallucinations from happening, right?
Okay.
By only basically the AI really can only talk.
I think OpenAI has made that a little bit easier too now with the structured responses as well. But like in general, that was a pretty big issue.
That could help. That's not live yet, but so we don't know.
Sure.
But frankly, we need to do a little bit more research on that. Even if you do have a forced structured response, and we can get really technical here.
Yeah. They don't have to, but
yeah. So even if you do have that, I still think it might tack on something a little. Like it might be like, oh well, and also, also it's 20 pallets, but it's like you just made that information.
Got it. Sure. Got it. Yeah, that's totally possible.
That's kind of funny, but yeah, I feel like that'd be a really big issue.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that under control.
Do you have a co-founder?
Yes. Yeah.
1, 2.
I have one co-founder, an absolutely incredible guy, an amazing engineer. So we met through mutual friends in New York City. Kwang used to be a leader on Airbnb's experimental product team. So this was a sort of a moonshot engineering team that reported directly to the chief product officer.
Okay.
So this was his like personal product team that could prototype early versions of what Airbnb could become in a couple of years' time. One thing I kind of just love to throw out there is if you've booked an Airbnb in the last 5-6 years, you've already been a user of Kwang's work. So Kwang led the redesign of Airbnb.com in 2020 when they completely revamped the whole site to kind of accommodate for like post-COVID travel.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's amazing. And so you co-founded it together, and then you started raising some money, or can you tell us about like what were like the initial steps?
Yeah, you did ask about that, and I totally glossed. So I think on our end, we were both first-time founders, and so we wanted the network of an incubator. We wanted the mentorship of an incubator, and I think YC was just like a really natural choice for us. Spit out tons of legendary companies. I think in this space, probably the most successful is Fleetworks to date. And some other companies, but so we applied to YC. The interview was brutal. I was telling you, Paul, that Michael Seibel was interviewing us, and he was obliterating us. Like he was.
What was his main point of feedback?
Well, he was really questioning everything that we were doing. He's like, really, like, why should this even exist? Like, why are you working on this? Well, isn't this already solved? And it's a 10-minute interview. So like they immediately come at you with hard questions. There's no like preamble. How's it going? How's the weather? And so we finished that call, and Paul and I looked at each other in stunned silence, and we were like, well, was a bust. We're not getting into YC. Took a walk around the block. Michael calls me, and he's like, hey, you said that you're going to have a prototype ready in 2 days. So can we schedule a call in 2 days? And can you show me the prototype?
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, the prototype was probably not going to be done in 2 days. So Kwang pulled 2 all-nighters to build the prototype of the product. Really held together with duct tape. And we showed it to Michael, and he's like, "Great, you're in."
Wow.
And like it was almost like an anticlimactic. We both again just looked at each other. We're like, "What just happened right now?" And so yeah, going through the whole program over the last summer was just amazing. I mean, I think the YC community, I mean, super smart people, but also I think some of the nice folks that we've met. We just had like a pizza party in our office last week. We had like 20 founders come in, which had pizza, beer, kind of traded war stories. So that out of YC, you know, we presented at demo day, raised a seed round out of that. That kind of gives us a few years of runway. And kind of we've been off to the races ever since.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
But you guys have just raised a seed round, no Series A yet, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Has the seed round public? Like the amount that you guys raised?
It's not public.
Okay. It's all good. Cool.
What are the future plans now? Like, where do you want to see this product go?
Yeah. I mean, I think we kind of been talking about it this whole time. I think we really view it as how can we move towards omnichannel? How can we do email, SMS, WhatsApp, and how can we move towards our pricing index? And ultimately, I think what kind of comes of that, how do our customers start to benefit from each other's bookings and data in a way that feels really fair to everyone and really transparent? And how do we do this in a way that really respects carriers and the work that they do and the time that they're putting in to haul this freight, but also reach out to our customers and book that freight? That's kind of really our goal. I mean, we're growing our team right now, so we've hired a couple engineers at this point, and you know, I think we're excited about really the design challenge here, because to your point, how do things look when you suddenly have 10 different forms of communication coming into one place in a way that's not overwhelming to the broker?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. What are like some feedbacks that you've heard or feedback that you've been given from brokers or customers so far? Like when you get set up, like what do they tell you?
Yeah.
Today's podcast is also brought to you by TextLocate. TextLocate makes it easy for brokers to communicate directly with drivers via SMS-based text messaging, no app to download without having to use personal communication devices. Go to textlocate.com to learn more.
I think it's been really positive, frankly, and that's kind of how we knew we were onto something. The magic comes when we cover that first load for a customer, and they, you know, we have one rep on the product, let's say, or half the team on a product, and they get that first call in, and they say, "Hey, yeah, I just spoke to this AI, and yeah, I guess I'll book this. I'll take this load. It sounds good." And the rep's like, "Okay, cool," and then they just book them, and it's like, whoa, like the AI did half an hour of work, and I, as the carrier rep, was able to book this load in 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's super powerful for the rep, super powerful for the management team behind it. The feedback, carrier reps always ask their carriers, what do you think about that? Half the time, the carriers don't know they're talking to an AI. The other half the time, they're like, oh yeah, I was talking to an AI, and that's pretty cool. Based on data that we see, so it can really vary, but between 4 and 7% of the time, a carrier is just going to request to talk to a human being without really interacting with our AI. And so that's kind of what we would consider, I guess, like a neutral to negative experience. And I think that probably will always be there. Like we again never want to prevent a world where a carrier can get in touch with a human being. But we just want to continue to build out our product such that there's less incentive for them to talk to a person, right? Because when we transfer them, they might have to wait on hold for 3, 4, 5 minutes. When they
Annoying.
Yeah, or just, you know, maybe like their team's super busy and they can't get to the phones.
Yeah, totally.
And so we just want to create like the best possible carrier experience.
Got it.
What do you think are some like not unforeseen kind of like side effects of the implementation of this new, I guess, technology platform? Like this is a new kind of communication platform in general, right? Like ELDs came in 2017. They kind of changed how visibility and how everybody could kind of monitor and track where their freight is. And that was kind of a side effect of ELDs. What do you think? Have you thought anything about it? I mean, it's like an open-ended question. I don't know if there's an answer to it necessarily, but
that's interesting. Yeah, great question. I think we're going to, I think one thing that some brokers struggle with, and this is more really at the executive level, kind of when we're talking to the CEOs or, you know, heads of operations, is they don't have, I think to your point around visibility, they don't have total visibility into how their loads are being booked. They know their loads are getting booked, but they don't know through what channels? Was it really the best price we could have gotten? Was it really the right carrier on that load, given the service requirements of that load? And so I think by centralizing all of these bookings into one place, what we enable ultimately the buyers of our product to do is look at their business holistically and be like, okay, I'm going to track how this load got covered. What were all my carrier touch points? Did I offer this out to my relationship carriers before I went to DAT and posted this? Or why didn't it work for my relationship, right? And we can report on all of that, right? Because that's going to be a conversation over email or a conversation on the phone. And we can say, hey, like you didn't get the best price on this load, but maybe that's okay. Like maybe you're servicing a high value customer, right? Or maybe you're trying to recover an account and you want to provide like the best possible. So you're okay paying more for a carrier that is just incredibly reliable, right? So I think what we enable our customers to do is start to have some really good decisioning about their business, or kind of open sort of a new option in decisioning. And they can understand, okay, now I can actually consciously make trade-offs versus today, I'm just going to hire a bunch of super hardworking guys, and they're just going to pound the phones, they're going to pound their emails, they're going to cover the freight.
Sure.
That's kind of
The freight coverage analytics essentially is going to be pretty. I think that's going to be super awesome to see. Like that you'll actually know which channels are the most effective at covering my freight, and I think it might end up being different for each brokerage because of the relationships that they have with certain carriers, and each brokerage will have different relationships for sure. So
yeah, and maybe that's going to open new channels for our customers. Like maybe today they book 2% of their freight on WhatsApp, but now that WhatsApp becomes an automated channel, maybe they start to book 20% of their freight through WhatsApp, right? And that's okay because you can track it and it becomes somewhat digital.
Sure.
I think that'll be really interesting to see how that happens.
Cool. I'm curious. I think about a quick question here.
Sure. One second.
Are we about to get out? Can you finish in like 5 minutes? Just need 5 minutes.
Well, there more do you need to make on it? About these.
Well, we're finishing the interview in 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
I was wondering, Paul, I guess we could.
We'll cut that part out.
Yeah. Does Fleetworks also like do outbound calls to offer lanes to relationship carriers?
Yep. Not today, but we will.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we want to be really careful about that, especially as we start to cover a really significant portion of the market.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say there's one carrier that works with 5 of our customers. Do we want to be hitting that carrier for all of our customers with outbound calls? I think the answer is no, right? Because we want to be super respectful of the carrier's time. And when we do proactively reach out to the carrier, we want that load to we want a very high confidence that they're going to book that load. So we don't want to spam. It's really important that I think one of the things was pushed us really hard on YC is if your product is used for spam, you're dead. Like spam is not a good business model.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important for us to get this carrier intelligence, build this network of carriers, understand where they actually want to move, and then we're actually helping carrier, right? When we proactively call them, we say, hey, sure, I know you want to run this lane. But we don't want to just say, hey, we've got 20 lanes. Do you want to book any of these? Like that's not a good use of the phone call.
Yeah. No, you're right. I like your approach to that. It's very true. And I'm wondering, Paul, like before we wrap up here, is there any like topic that you'd like us to discuss that we didn't discuss, or anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think, I don't know. You guys are excellent interviewers. I don't really have anything to say. What do we think about on our day to day? That's like radically different. Yeah, I think Christian, you're kind of alluding to this, right? Like there are so many AI technology companies, especially in this space, right? And then I guys just recently talked to Prove, a drum kit. He's a good friend of mine. We hang out in New York all the time. At this point, you guys are like running down the Ivy League, so I think you've got 5 more colleges to hit.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of really cool AI tech in space, and folks are trying to think about what is my AI strategy. That's kind of what we hear in the market is, what is my AI strategy? And I think that's a really interesting way to frame the problem. We've always looked at things more from a how do we solve our customers' problem? And that's why we're not really a voice AI company. We are a carrier sales company. And today we just do voice AI, but we're doing a lot more. And so I think we're starting to see our customers start to shift their perspective and think about how can I solve my carrier sales, right? Or how can I get better at appointment scheduling? Or how can I actually ingest customer requests for quotes into my TMS? Or how can I automate my quoting to the spot? And so we're seeing customers move away from AI as more AI companies come in and start to move towards a world where, back towards a world where they're like, how do I focus more on solving like this problem rather than how do I deploy a technology that can be deployed?
Sure. Great.
Definitely.
Cool.
Paul, thanks for coming by.
Thank you guys.
This was super great.
Chicago.
Thank you.
Wish you guys the best of luck. Please keep us posted in the progress. It's pretty cool to know how things are evolving. So whenever you're in Chicago, let us know, or when we're in SF, we'll let you know next.
Yeah, we'd love to get together. Yeah,
Deal.
I'm here all the time. So.
Cool. Yeah, let us know.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
And that's a wrap.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Freight Caviar podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, or if you didn't, leave a review. Let me know what you think. I appreciate any feedback. If you'd like to have more Freight Caviar content, go to freightcaviar.com and subscribe to my email newsletter.